Hey, this is going to be a quick guide to M1 and M2 mutations, and my name is Bebop, and let's get started. We're going to look at mutations that are live right now, which is Tempest is Void, Glacial Tarn is Nature, and Depths is Ice. So, when you're gearing up for, I'll go over tank set first, then I'll do the DPS set. The tank set, the Frigid Dawn gear you can craft at the Gypsum Kiln, and it's going to come with a random third perk. You can also change that random third perk to whatever you want it to be. It's going to cost you 3 chromatic seals and some dark matter and other things like that. But this set is really good because it's got elemental aversion and enchanted ward. You add health or sundering shockwave to some of your pieces, and you're going to have the best tanking set for heavy. And so you want to also have the whatever mutation type you're running, you want to have the cut pristine gems. Don't go cheap. Have the cut pristine ones, get ready, because eventually you're going to get to M3, and if you're not gearing right, you're going to just go in there and get destroyed and cost everybody the run, then they're going to get mad at you, okay? M3 is just a different animal. But anyways, we're covering M1 and M2, and let's go over the chest piece here. I recommend tanks get the Void Dark Plate. It's going to increase your armor by 20%. It's got physical aversion, chain of ward. I have fortifying shield rush on there, which, you know, Sundering Shockwave is also a really good option, probably even a better option, but Fortified Shield Rush is just really good to have. 21% Fortify for 6 seconds. And then, of course, the regular Frigid Dawn set with the random third perk. Got a sword. Now you can also go flail if you want. Got a hammer. Now, the amulet, if you look for mutations, you want to have whatever the mutation type is. So if it's void, you want to have void protection. You receive 15 less void damage. If it's ice, you want to have frozen protection. If it's nature, you want to have, you know, nature protection. If it's, you know, blah, 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 so on. Now, as tanks, you can have void protection on your shield if you want and run a different amulet. So that's an option. You can also run the Lost Stopwatch so that your taunts will be 300 times stronger, which is really good, but then you have to have the protection on your shield. Now, for M1 and M2, you can get away with a lot where you don't need all that. I'm trying to get your mindset ready to eventually get to 3. So, the ring, it depends on what type of enemies you're fighting. Since Slash doesn't do great to, you know, Corrupted, I went with a Keen Awareness to maybe get more criticals. To do a little bit more damage, you could go slash damage if you wanted to, but always have, you know, leeching and hardy on you, especially as a tank. Have hardy because you want the extra stamina. Tanks, it's important for you to have despised on your earring, okay? Don't have an earring that doesn't have despised. You need to generate threat. And if you're going to be 300 or 350 con, you're not going to do enough damage to hold a lot of threat. So as much as you can add on you, it's going to help. Nimble is so good for tanks. 10% stamina regeneration rate. Fortified Toast is okay. You can have that on there, or Healthy Toast, which then you can drink a mana pot and get 10% of your health back, which is really good too, in case you're in a bind or the healer goes down. And then Stone Form. You can upgrade this and get it to a higher quality and get more Fortify. And that way, if you get in a bind, you can really, you know, get rock hard, and they won't be able to penetrate your build. And yeah, so giggity. And let's see. If we scroll down here, as you see, I got a lot of tank sets. Let's go to DPS M1 and 2. DPS, I'll go over food and buffs here in a minute. DPS, you want Enchanted Ward on, you know, all your clothing, okay? It's the most important perk in the game, Enchanted Ward. Health is also important, but really overpopularized, I think. You also want weapon perks on your clothing that benefit your build and to increase your damage. I have this piece here, Strike Conditioning, because I wanted to talk about it real quick. Strike Conditioning, Slash Conditioning, I think those sets would be great for more certain bosses. Let's say if you're fighting Thorpe in Depths, you can go with a Slash Conditioning, but let's be honest here, if you're light gear, you know, low con, he's probably going to one-shot you anyways, unless you know what you're doing. You got a great team, enough weakenings applied. But as DPS, you always want to be in light gear, okay? You can go medium if you're starting out, but really you won't get accepted into a lot of dungeons. M1 and M2, you can randomly Q4, so it'll be fine. But always go to light and go 50 con. That's what I think all DPS should be. Now, you might go in dungeons and get your butt kicked a bunch of times, but you're going to learn the mechanics. You're going to learn when to dodge. If you go in there at 150 con light gear, you could survive a lot more. You're going to be doing a lot less damage. Fights are going to take forever, and you're not going to learn what you need to dodge. Okay, you're not going to get better doing that. So go 50 con. That's plenty enough con, and you can just learn that way. Okay. Also important, Enchanted War Refreshing Health is basically a Abyss piece in my mind, but you want to try to stack up as much refreshing on your clothes or on your, you know, character as possible, whether it be on an earring or ring or, you know, whatnot. 4 stacks is really good to help get your cooldowns down faster so you can have more abilities. Once again, Enchanted Ward. The other 2 perks don't matter on there. I have a weapon perk here for a spear. Sometimes I run Cyclone, or a lot of times I run Cyclone. And that way I can heal basically all the way full at any time with the Cyclone. And these pants you need to run as DPS. I see a lot of DPS running featherweight, but Attuned Leather Pants is going to get you the best DPS because it adds 10% attribute points to, or 10 attribute points to, you know, every attribute. So you're going to get more DPS out of this build. And then if you look here, we got Enfeebling Skewer on the clothing, Enchanted Ward, Refreshing. Now, if I was running a different spear that didn't have Enfeebling Skewer, I would like to have this on my clothing to at least help out. And so if I was running this spear, if I'm the second spear of the group, we got a main hand spear that is Enfeebling Skewer, Vicious, and Keenly Jagged. That's, you know, basically Abyss for main spear. If I'm going second spear, Vicious, Bleeding Sweet, Keenly Empowered would be the next best. You could then have Enfeebling Skewer on the clothing. You could also go Fortify Perforate on the clothing to give you, I think, 9 or 10% Fortify every time you use Perforate. So that's a really good piece, and most people are going to run Fortify, Enfeebling Skewer, and Perforate. Now, I already went over this spear. You don't want life stealing or keenly, you know, mortal fortified or any of that junk. You want Enfeebling Skewer, Vicious, or Rogue, Keenly Jagged, Keenly Empowered. Bleeding Sweep is really good for damage, and Vicious also. Those are the perks that you want on a spear. On a Great Axe, really the only thing that matters is Enfeebling Maelstrom. You're going to weaken the enemy, the big group of enemies, by 27% for 8 seconds, and you can group up enemies. This is what is a support weapon. You have a main DPS weapon, and then you have a support weapon. Now, support weapons are going to be, let's start off here. It will be a Great Axe would be a support weapon, hammer support weapon, bow, don't ever use in a dungeon. I mean, you certain bosses maybe. Bow and muskets, I mean, you can. Let's see, how do I say this? Use them on bosses only, and certain bosses, let's say in Savage Divide. Okay, they're not gonna do a hell of a lot of damage. They're slow. You can maybe hit a big shot, especially with the musket. I did see a guy hit a 26,000, you know, shot in Tempest to the one of the main bosses. So they can do damage. They're going to be slower than melee. So I would say they're support weapons. Blunderbuss, also a great support weapon though, is a blunderbuss, so you can knock people down with CC with the blast shot, and you can add rend to them, so that's good. And then also the splitting grenade, if you have that on your blunderbuss, you can inflict disease, I think 25% for 8 seconds, which is great in dungeons where the enemies are vampiric and they regenerate their health. So Fire Staff is a support weapon, Ice Gauntlet support weapon, and Void Gauntlet support weapon. So really, let's go over it again. Support weapons would be the Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet, Fire Staff, bow, musket, blunderbuss, hammer, and Great Axe. Those are not main DPS weapons, and the Flail and Shield would be support also. Usually main for tanks or maybe healers, but healers should be running Void Gauntlet. But let's go over the actual DPS weapons. Sword and Shield can be a good DPS weapon, also for tanking. Rapier, the best DPS weapon in the game. Hatchet got nerfed to hell and back a long time ago. It's a pretty good DPS weapon. Spear, I think the second best DPS weapon in the game. Great Sword, third best DPS weapon in the game. And then last, you got Life Staff for healers. So let's continue going over the gear here real quick. I have an amulet here spec'd out for Tempest. So I got Void Protection and DPS. You want Empowered on your amulet, and health would be better than refreshing. So Empowered, health, and Void Protection would be BIS. On the ring, you want whatever damage type complements your main DPS weapon. So Spear is mainly thrust, except for Cyclone, that is a strike, and the sweep is a strike until he thrusts down, that is a thrust. So you want thrust damage bonus on the ring, and you want hardy and leeching. Okay, that's this ring right there. You can make that at the Gypsum Kiln. What I like for DPS to have is Healthy Toast, and I don't really care what the other two. You can go with whatever you want. If it's a nature mutation, Purified Toast. If it's ice mutation, Purified Toast. Because when you drink a regeneration pot, you can get out of being stuck or rooted. But the Healthy Toast, when you drink a mana potion, gain 15% of your base health. So you have 3 ways to heal. All right. So you got the healing potion, you got the regen, and you got the mana potion. And those are a lot faster actions than eating. So it gives you a quicker way to heal, another way to heal, and now I got 4 ways to heal. So I'm maximizing my way of healing and not relying on the healer and wondering where my heals are. The healer's not there for you, he's there for the tank. Now, he will also look after you at times, but the healer's there for the tank. Stop blaming the healer and get good. You want vines, or people call it kick, which is the fire. Basically, the guy jumps in the air, kicks out fire that you can get from Forge. The detonate heart rune has really gone by the wayside, because when you're charging it up, 50% rend is applied to you, which means you take a hit, you know, you can go down a lot. So that's kind of got nerfed into the ground. The Bile Bomb is really good for any vampiric enemies, so you can stop them regenerating their health. Always keep spare gems on you, the cut pristine ones, because people run out of them in the dungeon and they always want to buy some from you at the beginning. You can make money doing that, or you can just be nice and give it to them, depending. But usually people are pretty generous when they're in there, because they know they, you know, were a big ding dong and freaking forgot their, you know, cut pristine, you know, gem. So always look out for your team, man. Let's be a team player out here. Tanks, Banana Parfait would be your main go-to for your food. Gives you 48% or 48 constitution for 50 minutes. For any strength builds, 48%, I mean 48 for 50 minutes, good lord. Banana bread. And then you got bacon wrapped scallops, which is one of the old tier 5 foods, and it has 24 strength and 16 dex. And let's see here, banana pudding is 48 dex. And Desert Sunrise is really good to help prevent dots from, you know, eating your lunch out there. You want to take that to help get through the dungeons and not be affected by the affliction. Let's see, utilities here, you always want to have, so if I'm doing Tempest, I have Infused Corruption Ward potions. Now, if you're doing M1s or M2s, you can definitely just get away with a strong ward pod or no ward pod in those two, but M3s, you want to have Infused, so just get prepared. You want to have the coatings for whatever enemy type you're going up against, and some dungeons have 2 types of enemies. Let's say like a need, you have Ancients, and then you have Corrupted, so make sure you have both on you. You can go with Powerful, or I would say if you're DPSing, just go with in an M1 and M2, just go with Powerful. That way you add a DPS and you just get through it a little faster. Honing Stones for M1 and M2, strong Honing Stones really good. Common can work just fine. It's going to increase your weapon damage 6% by 35 minutes. Save these for M3s. And other weapons, you know, great sword. That's if you're a tank, this would be basically, I mean, if you don't have Serenity, this would be best for tanking. Trenchant Strikes is a must if you're great sword tanking. Energy Counter, refreshing move, I think is a must if you're great sword tanking. You got the sword. Depending on what type of enemy type, you can go Empowering Whirling Blade or the Leaping Strike. If the enemies are weak to slash, Whirling Blade. If the enemies are weak to thrust, the leap would be better. And we already went over that. So that about wraps it up. Can't think of anything else. M1 and M2s are pretty easy. For tanks, you can add a strike shield ward if the enemies are doing a lot of strike in that dungeon, or a certain boss is doing a strike in that dungeon. Sturdy is pretty good to have on a shield if you're starting out and you're going to be blocking a little bit more than you think you might, which gives I think 10% less stamina damage. I don't have a shield with it here because I basically taunt and then swing away. Enchanted Ward's really good to have on the shield, but really any sort of protection to help get you through it, I think is the best way to go. So anyways, I think that's about it. Covered everything, and let me know if you enjoyed the video. I'm going to be coming out with the M3 one. It's going to be way more in depth, and it's going to cover basically everything. So I'll talk to you on that video later.